I also have a tonsure, but it's called male pattern baldness. So nothing to do with having a tonsure myself. So anyway, yes, there you go.
Hello everybody, Dan and I are here today at Sweetheart Abbey in New Abbey, which is a village several miles away from Dumfries, and it took us about half hour, 40 minutes to get here from Thornhill village. It's a very pretty part of Dumfries and Galloway. We've been here before, but not for several years. They've been busy doing some work on the abbey. It's still going on. We've got a new gateway as well, but we thought several years on we would come and have a look round and see what's changed and just have another look round for old time's sake. So let's away. So in 1268, Lord John Balliol of Barnard Castle in County Durham, no jokes please about Dominic Cummings, he passed away. His grieving widow, Lady Dervogilla, after whom a beautiful old bridge in Dumfries is named. She was the Lady of Galloway, had his heart embalmed and put into an ivory casket. She placed it on her dining table, to which she invited the poor and needy. She carried it around with her all the time until her own death some years later. She undertook many charitable acts, including establishing in 1273 the Cistercian Abbey of Sweetheart, named after her husband who was her sweetheart, not far from her home at Bootle Castle. When she died in 1289, her body and her husband's heart were buried here. Within 7 years, and with the builders still working on the Abbey Church, the Wars of Independence broke out. After 50 years of bloodshed, the monastery was in a sad state. The new Lord of Galloway, Archibald Douglas, or the Grim, who had Threave Castle, not far from Castle Douglas on a little island on the River Dee, had the abbey repaired. But after this, very little is known about Sweetheart Abbey. Now, I think about this is as well, Archibald the Grim did this in part as penance for all the grim things that he did. At Threave Castle, for example, the dungeon is a pit dungeon, so people would be there just upright and below the kitchen, so they'd have all these wonderful smells but would be going way out. And other grim acts of death and violence he committed. So part of the reason why he chose to be a benefactor was to try and put right with God some of the dastardly deeds that he had committed. Anyway, let's go through. This is new. They didn't used to have a sign. It tells you it's the refectory. That's rather good. So at least we know what this area is without needing to go to the guidebook, although I am referring to the guidebook which we had last time we came, and it's got a lot of useful information in. Here is the map of how it looked. It was set out in a sort of a cross formation.
So anyway, this is Sweetheart Abbey. This is one of the most romantic sites in the whole of Scotland. This is the Taj Mahal of Scotland, but roles reverse. So basically, in a nutshell, there was a woman called Dervogilla, one of the richest women in Scotland and in fact Britain at the time, marries a guy called John Balliol from Barnard Castle. In Barnard Castle is the castle you go to if you've got a long drive to London, and you need to check your eyesight.
I've been there. I checked my eyesight. Yeah.
Good. So she marries him when she's 13, or she's betrothed to him 13. And that is in 1223. He dies in 1268, sadly. They produced many children, but she's utterly heartbroken that he's died. And on his death, hopefully he wasn't like recovering and feeling a lot better. But anyway, she has his heart cut out of his body, has it embalmed, put into an ivory case, and for the next 22 years carries it around with her, okay? But she wants a lasting memorial for the love and devotion that they have for each other, and this is the result. Sweetheart Abbey, built 5 years later, but completed about that time. Now for 5 years, John is somewhere, we don't know where, and he's in there somewhere too, we don't know where either. But we do know where his heart is, because when she dies in January 1290, the monks, the Cistercian monks that she brought over from England to here, she's buried in front of the high altar. It's the only bit you kind of get into today, okay? So she's buried in the front of the high altar, the bit that we call the presbytery, but you can get into the nave. So she's buried with the husband's heart. Now initially when this was built, it was called the Abbey of the St. Mary the Sweetheart, but eventually it just got called Sweetheart Abbey. So, and we have people today who come here, who get engaged here, they get married here, they get their wedding photographs taken in here, and they even have their ashes scattered in here as well.
Wow.
So this is, you know, so this is a really important site for a lot of, there's a lot of people that also got relatives who are buried in over there. This is quite an emotional site for a lot of people. So we've got 4 lovely boards to read for you today. We've got the board over there tells you the story I've just told you now. We've got the board over there tells you a little bit about the order service inside the Abbey. That board there tells you about the extreme hard Cistercian way of life, whereupon you had to purposely shave your head. It's called a tonsure, and you had to keep your tonsure in. You couldn't let your tonsure grow out, right? Because imagine in the summer you'd burn your head, and in the winter it was freezing. I also have a tonsure, but it's called male pattern baldness. Okay, so nothing to do. I've all tonsured myself. So anyway, yes, there you go. So he's got the tonsure, and the moment you decided to grow your tonsure out, you then had to move from this side of the Abbey complex and go the other side where the lay brothers were. Yeah. Okay. But the lay brothers saw to all the needs of these guys here, so probably it was still worth shaving your head. To the lay brothers would do all the hard manual work to allow you to get on with the other bits of praying, reading in the chapter house, the rule of Saint Benedict, confessing your sins, and sometimes being harshly punished depending on how severe your bad thoughts were that night. And this was funded by the Balliols until something happened in Scotland, which is, of course, we had unfortunately the Scottish Wars of Independence. That began with her son John Balliol. Her son becomes King of Scotland, okay? And he was only king for 4 years, and unfortunately he rebelled against Edward I, who then invaded Scotland, and then came to the fore people like William Wallace and Andrew de Murray and people like this, Sir Simon Fraser, and so it goes on. Eventually the Balliols family and all their supporters were actually booted out of Scotland by the Bruces, because they thought they had a better claim to the throne than the Balliols did. So unfortunately, after the death of Robert the Bruce's son David II becomes the next patron of this, and then it's the Douglas's family. A mate of David II's is a guy called Archibald the Grim Douglas, who built Shrewd Castle, and they, if you go the other side of their cloister arch, you will see 2 coats of arms. Those coat of arms show the 3 stars and a heart underneath, and that heart represents the fact that James Douglas, who was the
Black Douglas,
yes,
is my
right.
ancestor.
Yes, is he? Well,
yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah. So James Douglas took Robert the Bruce's heart. Robert the Bruce dies in 1329. Well, we always want to go on the Crusades. So in 1330, James Douglas, as well as other noble Scots, go to Spain, go to try to relieve a castle called Tiber. Unfortunately, the Moors attacked them, and James Douglas has Robert the Bruce's heart. He throws it against the Moors, flies through the air allegedly. The Moors see this coming, flying past them, and one looks at him and says, "What was that?" And he thinks, "I think it was a brave heart." So anyway, James Douglas is cut to pieces, as the rest of the Scots are cut to pieces, and eventually James Douglas's bones and heart return to Scotland, where they're buried in Douglas, and Robert the Bruce's heart is buried in Montrose Abbey somewhere. and our abbey was still going on, but unfortunately the Protestant Reformation saw the end of this. 1560 becomes the official form of religion. Within 50 years, all these places here were abandoned. The monks were asked to move, or died, or were forcibly removed. And then this was then just used as a local quarry, and the stones from Sweetheart Abbey built this village here. So that's where all the stones go. So it's remarkable we've got as much as we've got now. And that is the story of Sweetheart Abbey. That was the short version. So anyway.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So enjoy your time here, read the boards, and if you want to buy the little boot from me, the postcard of the thimble, I do the lot in there for about £6.85, or otherwise you can break them down singularly. All right?
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. So we're going down here. The warming house.
The only fireplace in the monastery was here.
They used to do leeching as well here in the abbey. So the old monks and those infirm used to come for leeching, and in fact periodically everybody in the abbey came for leeching, because the leeches, it was believed, got rid of all the poisons in the body.
You sucked the blood out.
That's correct, yes. All the bad blood.
I guess
Wow.
the fireplace would have been in that corner there.
And you see that there, this is known as the wheel window, and there was a piece out because of the way the roof fit. They had to take a piece out, so that's why they built the wheel window there.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'll see if there's anything else to say about it. Here we go, there's the picture there of the wheel window. It says a change in style of the nave's upper windows probably marks the position of the screen. The change probably also marked a change in the construction programme, for building work was often halted on completing the monks' choir, so that work could begin on the chapter house. The presbytery, monks' choir and chapter house were the most important parts of any monastery. The completion of the remainder of the church would routinely have followed, except that at Sweetheart the outbreak of the Wars of Independence interrupted the building schedule, which we've heard about. The west front and upper part of the nave were only built in the later 1300s, as the change in style indicates. And Archibald the Grim was made an earl in about 1369, and at that time he built his seat at Threave Castle. Whilst adhering to Cistercian austerity, the church has fine flourishes of detail, particularly the stone tracery in the windows, and in particular those in the presbytery. The master mason was also ingenious in the way he approached problems. In the south transept, here we go, this is the south transept, he had to take the roof of the monks' dormitory into account when designing the windows, and solved this by using a wheel window with a segment cut out where the roof line joins the south wall. Cistercian austerity, though, is evident in the planning of the building. There's no triforium, the gallery between the nave arcade and the clerestory windows above, and the tower over the crossing was kept deliberately low. The battlements and gables above were added much later, in deference to a ban in 1157 on bell towers. This is the chapter house.
Here the monks met each morning to discuss business and to hear a chapter of the rule of the order read, so they remind you how they should behave.
And in fact, when we were eating in the refectory, they communicated by sign language so as not to break the vow of silence.
And there's the abbot in charge of chapter house meetings, looking rather stern and severe, telling the brothers how they should behave.
They had Lectio Divina, or the Word of God, which happened at least once during a day when the community gathered to read and meditate. Monks felt that reading was important, not only to acquire knowledge but also to stir the heart and bring them closer to God.
Each abbey had a library in the cloister, during Lent the monks received a book each, and they were expected to read it every day to grasp its spiritual meaning.
It may or may not have been as much fun as an Easter egg.
No, I think I would have preferred the chocolate. I would have said you can keep your book, not interested.
Isn't it fine, the stonework on it?
Oh yeah.
The masonry.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
a bit obsessed with architecture.
Yeah.
Always have been.
You can see how rough it was. There would have been nice smooth stonework in front of all that.
Yes. Maybe you can read that sign there.
On the right was the library, and here was where the manuscript and later printed books were stored.
Very good.
Sacristy, I think the word was. The path of the righteous.
So we're looking at the gathering place. There's two intricately carved screens that divided this public area, the nave, from the sacred east end. Local people and lay brothers prayed here, separated from the clergy in the holiest space beyond. This end of the church was dominated by the enormous west window, which would have filled the church with light. A large section was later filled with masonry to increase stability. So let's
go in.
And I'll point out the west window. It's a beautifully decorated window.
It's the workers to stop the place falling down.
Yes.
So how far?
Yeah, it's very necessary. There's a lot more work going on here than when we last visited.
Yes, it needs it because of the old red sandstone has a habit of weathering quite easily, as we saw with the gravestones.
They're also doing it, of course, at Carlarvik as well. Carlarvik Castle is partly shut off at the moment.
That looks quite impressive.
This is the west window here. This is the stunning west window. That's what I wanted to point out.
It looks very impressive.
It does, it's beautiful.
Imagine what it was like when it was before it started falling
Absolutely
down.
stunning. That and the trace windows and the wheel window, it's incredible.
Okay, so where
Oh,
is she
yes.
buried? Oh, that's beautiful.
That window is stunning.
It is. And can you just imagine how beautiful it was? Like, was it just open like this, or were there windows there?
It was glazed.
Glass.
It's been glazed at one
Yeah,
time.
yeah, glazed,
like
yeah,
glass,
stained
like
glass.
stained glass.
Yeah, just like an ordinary church.
A regular church. Just
Yeah, just bigger. It's like a cathedral.
absolutely beautiful. Like,
Did you notice the wheel window up there as well? That was built by the masons needed to do a different kind of window because of the way the roof was for the monks' dormitories.
oh,
So he had this ingenious idea of making a window like a wheel, but having a bit cut out so the roof could then fit in with it.
sure.
But that feature and that
Wow.
and the trace windows is the most
Yeah.
stunning parts
Yeah.
of this place, as well as the sheer size as well of the area.
Well, but the other
Incredible.
thing is too, it was all done by hand.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Like there wasn't a crane,
No machinery.
there's no machinery. They
All
had,
by
they probably
hand.
had ladders and tullies,
Yeah.
but even all the stones
It was all
were made by
carved.
All hand carved.
They were
Everything was
Gavel and
carved.
chisel, yeah.
exactly. So
Exactly. I mean, you
So
can't
what does
see
that
how
tell you?
A lot of the modern,
Yeah,
lots of the modern buildings won't be standing on 100 or 200 years.
Exactly.
They won't. So this here is the stunning west window. Look at that. And we were just saying to the American lady who's from Pennsylvania, we were talking about how all this was done by hand carved, no machinery, just stonemasons and assistants and other workers, all done by hand with a chisel. They might have had pulleys and ropes. And did you think as well how thick the stone was? And if you think about it, this is roughly 800 years old, and it's, even though in ruin, stood the test of time. It's still standing, even in a slightly ruined form. it's still here. And look at this over there as well, that triangular shape.
In the corner there's a what looks like a gravestone. Don't know if you can pick it up very clearly with all the works going on, but it's just under the window between the two pillars in the shade. There's also what looks like a tomb in the corner. Again, we can't get to it because of the building works. You can see where they've laid out all the stones ready to be reinstalled. They've cleaned it all up and conserved it. They've been quite meticulous in marking up the bits and making sure everything is accounted for.
So here you can see is the two coat of arms, and you've got the stars and the heart, which is the symbol of Archibald the Grim. And this is the end of our whistle stop trip. We can't see as much as we would have liked because of the building work, but we hope you enjoyed watching and also hearing information from the official guide here. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Please do comment, what do you think of this place? And moreover, what do you think about my dastardly ancestors? Please share, please subscribe, ding ye oldie notification belly, and I will see you again soon for the next adventure. Until then, bye for now.